Good afternoon. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board of Work session. It is Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. It is 2 p.m. The session is set to go until 3 p.m. This is a hybrid work session, and we're at 3000 Pacific Avenue, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder. And today we will be discussing the state of the solid waste system briefing, and we have Public Works Director Jennifer Walker, as well as Jeff Pickford, our solid waste manager. Say that fast sometimes. So who am I passing this?
I'll start it off and just say that this is, for all of our systems, we like to do an annual briefing that gives kind of a current state of the system, what we've accomplished, what we have planned moving forward, just kind of an overview. Generally helps when we do this in advance of the capital the CIP and tip for transportation, and then as we prepare for budget. So it's just high level informational, no decision making. So with that.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jeff Bickford, Solid Waste Manager. And next slide, please. Steve.
I can help you, or you want to do it?
If you, oh, thank you. And next slide.
Yep.
We just roll it down.
Scroll bar.
Yep, it's a PDF.
All right, just so quick, again, a quick overview of the facilities that the Solid Waste Division manages. First and foremost, as you know, is the Waste and Recovery Facility WARC, as we like to call it, BoCC, which has a myriad of different activities going on out there, as well as the smaller Dropbox, what we call Dropbox facilities in Rainier and Rochester. Those two facilities are small, about 5 acres in size. Have fairly limited services available. Primarily, there's a small recycling depot in each of those, and then we do take residential and small business garbage there. That material is ultimately hauled back to the Waste and Recovery Center, be processed, compacted, and then loaded out eventually to our disposal sites. Next slide. A little more about the Waste and Recovery Center. It was built on the site of the old closed Hawks Prairie landfill, which was closed back in the year 2000. Has a lot of activities, got a lot of things going on out there. The primary piece is the solid waste transfer station. So you have what you see there, the transfer building. That's where the en route commercial vehicles go. So your curbside is the compactor, as well as the Dropbox, commercial Dropbox. The public utilizes the self-haul area where they tip into small portable drop boxes, which are then unloaded into the transfer building. There it's compacted, loaded to trailers, and hauled to Centralia, where it gets on a train and goes to the Roosevelt landfill in Eastern Washington. Additionally, on site, we have household hazardous waste collection facility, HAZO House. All of these facilities are, I should mention, open to the public 361 days of the year. That being said, there's only 2 days where we actually aren't staffing that facility, because even on the 4th of July and Thanksgiving, when we're closed to the public, the commercial operators still run, so we still have to staff the site because waste still comes in. So there's really only 2 days a year where it's closed, and that's Christmas and New Year's. So it's basically not like around the clock, but basically we're open more or less all the time. Additionally, on site, we have a recycling center, as well as an off-leash dog park that resides over an old section of the old closed landfill. It's space for small and large dogs. Closed loop park, which is adjacent to that, is sort of a demonstration garden, which is maintained primarily by the master gardeners and master receptor composter folks. And then up in the large section, we have a lease. We have leased that section for the intercity transit, where they have a park and ride. I believe we get a whole dollar a year.
Yeah, whole dollar, that's what it is.
So I just want to give you a little feel for how, how the waste has been flowing and just a few metrics related to our facilities. So at the Waste and Recovery Center, as far as the total waste coming in, through the late teens, we definitely saw significant rises in the amount of garbage that was coming to that facility. And it kind of peaked in 2020, again with COVID hitting. And in 2021, we went up almost 18,000 tons between 2020 and 2021. I'm happy to say that at least that we've slowed that down a little bit. After 22, it's kind of starting to plateau off a little bit, and you'll see that when I get to the Dropbox facilities as well. That's good because we have been seeing, particularly in the summertime, we are at or of capacity as far as vehicle counts and just the amount of material that we're able to handle. So the fact that it's leveling out a little bit is definitely, it's giving us a chance to take a little bit of a breather and catch up. And as we'll talk about later in some of our upcoming planning for our facilities, that's definitely an important aspect. Organics, yard debris and food waste. It's more or less it grew again up into the pandemic, and it's more or less leveled out at this point. You can see it's very normal growth. It's kind of flatlining. We do expect to see this rise here over the next number of years, and that really is related to the HB 1799 that came through with previous year's legislature, the organics bill. It's making a push to recover more organics. So either we get our amount of organics disposed and going to a landfill down by 75% from the amount of organics back in 2015. So we'll see more of that, as well as commercial food waste and yard debris that will be ratcheting up in the next several years as far as them being required to engage in collection. So we expect to see that growing
Are we
significantly.
gonna wait until we get all the way through this and then come back on questions?
Do you have questions?
I do.
Okay.
Is that okay, Jeff, or,
fine.
okay?
I'm just wondering, are we gonna talk about, no, never mind, I don't have any questions.
That was easy.
Yeah, good job, Jeff.
At
I
the
think there
Rainier
will be a
drop-off-
different
Rainier
set of
drop-off
outcomes.
facility. It's a similar thing. With the pandemic first hit at both Rainier and Rochester, the customer counts went up quite significantly. They basically have leveled off as far as the amount of waste that's being delivered. You'll notice that it's almost starting to flatline as well. Again, that's good for us because they're small, they're undersized, their capability to manage that waste is limited. So it's giving us a little bit of a reprieve at this point in time.
Did you expand the hours?
Excuse me?
Did you expand the hours?
Not at this point in time. They're still open 3 days a week. I believe we had a consultant that looked at that, and I believe that was supported.
Just a helpful hint, like, this is a hard graph to read to compare year to year when, especially if there's seasonal fluctuation, because you're looking at a trend, but that trend is like for all the years. It'd be better to have lines, like 3 lines for each year, so you can see when you say it's leveling off. I can't really see that here, because my eye has to look at the green.
Kind of what Robin does for the budget, kind of?
The yellow. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
It's just kind of a confusing configuration of that information.
Okay, thank you.
And we are showing that the percent changes on the right-hand side of that, which is going to show whether it's up or down and what percent on each of these charts, just as a reference point. So you'll notice like in 2020 on Rainier, it actually went down 2%. It's even for 21 to 22, the difference from year over year.
What do you attribute that kind of flat to?
Again, we went up when the COVID first hit, but I think there was a surge, and now it's kind of getting back into the, for lack of a better word, kind of a new normal. And I think people are not doing as much self-hauling, and we'll see that a little bit when we get to the customer counts.
People are not as home as much, so they don't have additional trash left.
Maybe?
Yeah, well, exactly. And
Time to
back
clean your
work.
houses.
So again, they're not, and that's part of the reason we saw such a surge in that. At both of these Dropbox facilities, we saw a huge increase in cardboard recycling. I'll use that as an example. And that was because during the pandemic, we were ordering from Amazon. I mean, so they weren't going anywhere. So boy, we were just getting hammered with cardboard. I mean, it's still high, but it's not quite as high as when we were in the full-blown pandemic. Rochester similarly, we noticed from 20 to 21 is a 2% increase, and last year we saw a 1% decrease. So over that 2-year period, we only had an increase of about 1%. So it's starting to level out as well. So again, that gives us some opportunity to catch our breath and plan for what we want to move forward with as far as facilities. And we'll be looking at that as one of our CIP items, as a matter of fact. On customer counts, you'll notice here, so from 2020 to 2021, a 6% increase year over year going to that. But then, as we got out of the pandemic, it's actually gone down to 2% as far as total customer counts. One of the things that we have noticed when you correlate the customer counts with the tonnages, is what we're seeing is we're getting similar amount of tons, but less people bringing them. So what's really happening is that the people that are coming are just coming with fuller loads. Less people that are showing up with just meeting the minimum, because we have a minimum charge. So, if you bring in under a certain number of pounds, you're going to pay that minimum charge regardless. So people are, they're waiting to come until they have a fuller load. So that we have,
Good, right?
which just makes more sense, because if you only have 100 pounds and you're paying your minimum, so I'll just say 300 is the minimum, you're still going to pay that minimum fee. So it makes sense.
Plus, people get angry when they have to sit in line, and you need more staffing, and it's harder on the facility to have cars coming in with dinky little loads over and over and over and over and over again. So it sounds like that's a good trend.
It's a balance, right? Because we're always looking at throughput. And certainly with more customers, there's more of those touch points as you're going through and paying and all of that. Larger loads, it's more time to unload, especially at our 2 drop box locations, which, as you know, we use a yardstick to assess the volume. So there's opportunities, as we've talked about.
Right, we have no scale at either of the 2 drop boxes. You actually literally have to measure by the yards to keep your yards.
I've never even been to a drop box.
So that slows it down.
Go check it out.
So over the past year or so, some organizational and operational improvements that we've made. First one's the biggest one. The new solid waste operations maintenance, transport, and disposal agreement, with the implementation taking place on May 1st, just a few weeks ago. So that was a big change. They still have a few little small bugs to work out, but they're up and running, and we're staying on top of them, make sure that they're doing everything they need to be doing. So, but overall, I'd say the transition went fairly well. To the public, generally speaking, it was transparent. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we catch. We're continuing to stay on them. But the overall, one of the key pieces of that, as you recall, the fees that we were paying per ton for several of those things were lower than we were currently paying. So we should see, at least in the short term, temporary reductions in our overall costs on some of those items. Additionally, we increased last fall, the board with this one, we increased our toll house operators from being not quite full-time, from 0.8 FTE to full-time, which is, for us, has really improved our ability to cover our sites with sufficient staff, which gives a lot better customer service, particularly when you have the little additional coverage, because you get people sick on vacation. So where sometimes that would, folks called in, that would stretch us a little thin. We have that extra staffing to meet that need and that demand.
Was that a welcome change to staff? I mean, to a full-time?
Yes. Yes.
And
And it's also increased our pool of candidates when we do recruit.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is easier to recruit because people want to work full-time versus at a 0.8. And they all basically work at one of those 980 schedules. So and everybody has their multiple days off in a row. So it's just easier to schedule folks. And again, it's been a boon as far as our ability to provide customer service. So it's been a big plus. We just at the beginning of this calendar year incorporated the litter program, which previously resided under the roads division. So those of you who've met Carl before, he's now working as part of this solid waste division. I'll be talking about some of the things that we're looking to improve and do here in the future shortly.
Do you use inmates yet for the litter control?
Sorry, excuse me.
Inmates, do you use
We
inmates?
had been, but we've had difficulty getting access to them. When we can get them, we do, absolutely.
I think the pandemic put a blip on everything,
What happened?
the pandemic.
Oh,
Put a-
it
so
might
the-
have goofed it up,
Yeah,
but now
it-
you're gonna get back to normal and start.
Well, let me clarify. So prior to the pandemic, we weren't really getting many, few years leading up to that because of the type of folks that were in the jail. So there was not a comfort level of releasing them to do work for us. And so we worked with the Drug and Alcohol Court to get deferrals. So we were getting some of those folks. And I'm not sure if we're getting anyone right now, but it really is kind of just an ebb and flow for that.
And it's when you can get them. My understanding is they put it out of it once a month, that here's some days that we can do it, and it's the first people that can grab them, get them. So we need that effort, and we do get them occasionally, but not as much as we would care to.
Victim of our success of getting
Maybe so,
only the most serious people in the jail.
You know, the ecology crews, they used to work on the state highways, were severely affected on the pandemic because it could just couldn't come, you know, and volunteers and everything.
Yes.
As
So
a
it's
result
also,
of that, we saw a lot of litter.
I'm sorry.
We saw a lot of litter on
Yes.
state highways.
Yes, so we are part of the transferring the litter program. It actually wasn't it was in roads a while ago, but it was in administrative services and transferring over into solid waste because we see some more synergy there, and we're also doing a more focused, concentrated effort to boost up that program so that we know we have some common areas where people are dumping, but just getting more resources
And that is something
focused at.
Yeah, something we'll be adding, we're talking about later as far as into the future, as well as some additions that we're looking at. We, over the past biennium actually, we've leveraged local solid waste financial assistance grant funds from the Department of Ecology from 21, basically up until this coming June, end of June. That we received about $370,000 it was directed directly to funding our staffing and disposal expenses related to Hazel House. So it's a successful grant application, and we'll have another opportunity here, sure, and I'll talk about that again.
That's great though, 370,000.
It's something that we need to do, and the funds are available. So we actually had an original grant was for less, but as the grant cycle ends, what people who underspend that money comes available again, and we were able to get another 140,000 that we were able to apply to that just for the last 2 quarters of this year. So
Because the Hustle House is a no-cost service.
for our citizens, that's correct. Or for our residents, that's correct. But for businesses, they pay their part.
Right.
And we also updated our disaster debris plan and continuity of operations plan this year. Key on that disaster debris plan update was during the floods of early 2022. We instituted something that was created based upon that disaster, where we implemented a voucher program for individuals who had been flooded, who had damages, and they registered with the county, then they were able to receive vouchers for free disposal of their flood debris waste. That ended up being very successful. The key for that was that previously I heard in the past where if you think in the Squally where they provided drop boxes and then anybody could come and drop, or sometimes you get people that take advantage of that. That it's not flood debris and they just see it as a freebie. So we wanted to limit that kind of activity. So this new program we implemented for this worked well. We worked it into our disaster debris plan. So for the next disaster, the concept's there and we'll be able to implement it right away. So I'm excited about that one. As far as some major infrastructure improvements, you've heard about many of these over a number of times. The flare system upgrades. We are currently in our, basically the demonstration phase for the next month. With it operating, and then we'll be closing it, assuming everything works great, we'll be closing that one out. I actually showed pictures of what the new flares look like. They're small.
What do you mean that you're gonna be closing things out?
The
The
project.
old system?
The project.
Correct, the old flares will be taken down, and then we'll be operating on that, and then we'll be closing, it's like in construction mode still, we'll be closing out the construction project, and then just,
Will these new flares be running 24 hours a day?
actually, no. Basically, there's just not,
There's
they're
not,
basically about
there is
2
not
days
enough
on,
gas.
2 days
yeah.
on, 1 off. It just, our gas volumes are so low, and they're continuing to lower, as well as the methane content, that if you run it too much like that, then the gas volume is way too low. Just nothing's going to run effectively. So that's why we're downsized for those monsters. The ones on the right, they're about 6 feet in diameter, 40 feet tall. So these other ones are teeny in comparison. Even
And
then, we're still
you
having to
can't
run it.
compress that gas either? You can't compress it, what's coming out, just keep compressing and,
Not really. To really try to extract it and then utilize it, it's just, there's not enough that's cost effective to do that. It's just
what do you do? Just every 2 days, you go out there with a cigarette lighter? Or what do you do?
Practically, no, but no, but
And
it's
simple.
it's automated, and so we can basically, through the new SCADA, which I can, another piece is we'll ignite them and run it for 2 days, then we turn it off for a day, because that lets the gas level build up enough, and then we turn it back on.
So you have a valve there to keep gas from
Correct,
escaping?
yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
That basically is you pan it in, and then until you want it, and then you pull it out, and then you stop it, let it build up again.
But I like the cigarette lighter idea.
Maybe a log lighter so you don't have to be so close.
Yeah, so you don't have to
I
leave
don't
it.
think I want to see my employees out there with
It will be, you light it up, no eyebrows, right?
our safety people would really frown on that. And then the SCADA system, which is, ties into that, as you know, it's been working on this for quite a while as well. The old system was failing, but by putting this new upgraded SCADA system, it allows for basically remote monitoring, data collection, as well as operations, for turning valves or turning pumps on or off. So for our operations for our gas leachate and stormwater systems over at the old closed landfill. So that actually, we only have an item or 2 left on our punch list, and then we'll be closing that construction contract out here next month as well. So those have been long-term projects. We're getting really close to completion. Makes us really happy. And then the pump system upgrades, we're currently in the process of construction mode on that right now. Similarly, a lot of those pumps were put in 20 plus years ago, and we've been having various ones fail on a regular basis. So this is going to go in and basically replace like with like, so similar pumps. With a couple of other additions that we have some manholes where the pumps are that are really deep, where we have to send people down in confined space to deal with them. There's going to be some changes in some of those locations where they'll be bringing them up closer so you can avoid that confined space entry. That's dangerous. And I don't like sending our employees down there if at all possible. So there's some changes along that line. Additionally, all of these are integrated into the new SCADA system. So you get everything kind of working together. So I'm not going to go over all the little small minuscule print here in our 2023-28 capital improvement plan. I know you've seen it before, but basically I'm going to just go over the 3 highlighted ones that are up there. The first one being the compactor replacement and overhaul. So as you know, having that compactor running is crucial for our operations. It needs to be kind of as much as possible up and running, because when it's down, basically you have to use the top load containers, and it's slower, and you don't get quite as much waste loaded per up to 5 tons less per load. So our compactor that was put in at the end of, I think it was 2017. Interestingly, when we look back at the RFP that was put out back then and the expected loading of the amount of waste that was going to go through that, it's way below the amount that in reality turned out. Garbage has gone up dramatically higher than what was projected way back when. So it's been cycling a lot more than what was originally projected. So we are looking to, it's in our current CIP to go out with the an RFP bid to purchase a new compactor. We would have that one removed and not, we would save it, have it then basically overhauled and mothballed. Because we want to be able to utilize it, and this kind of goes to the next item I'm going to talk about, what we spoke about recently, is when we do the WARC reconfiguration, then utilize that second compactor in the new reworked transfer station building. So we would have two, which would provide a level of redundancy for us. So whenever you have one down for maintenance, or if it's unexpectedly down, you have another, so you're never without, which would be a very valuable.
Is this ours or theirs?
It's ours.
And what's the new one gonna be?
It'll be basically very similar to that.
And that'll be ours as well?
Correct. We'll be purchasing it.
And that's the way the contract was written, so that we furnished that tool?
It's always ours.
Yeah, but
I
I'm
think
just curious
I
why.
think it's better to separate the asset from the operations.
We wanted to have control over that because it has such a significant impact if it does go down.
And it is physically, really physically
Is
attached
it
to
their people running it, or is it our people running it?
theirs.
See, that sometimes doesn't jive very well in real business.
This is real business.
Well, no, I'm talking
It's
about
real
real
money.
business that you gotta make a profit, not government business, not monkey business, the government does. But real business, because I can tell you all kinds of operations where when the contractor is running your equipment, it doesn't get adequate maintenance, and so what if it breaks? And if it breaks, we get the rest of the afternoon off. And that doesn't happen when you have that written into the contract, that it's solely their responsibility. So I'm not thrilled about that, but that's okay. I mean, it is what it is, but there's a reason for doing it that way.
I might add that, for example, our most recent contractor, which was Waste Connections, who ran it for quite some time. When things did go down there, they paid the bill for repairs.
And is that gonna happen now as well? Will that happen now as
They are
well?
responsible, I think, up to the first.
No, but I mean, will Republic be responsible to fix it? Yeah? No?
Up to the first 50. Up to the first 50,000
Okay,
per year.
because it does make a difference, especially if they know it. If they know it's coming out
They're
of their budget.
responsible to a certain year.
We've got built-in schedules that we have to manage too. They're responsible, manage them too as well, so.
That, actually, to piggyback on that, when you said mothball, the redundancy of having that, is there a preventative maintenance kind of schedule for that as well? So that if it's called into action, that everything is ready to actually function?
That would be something that we will be negotiating with SSI, who's the builder of that particular one that's there, because we want to take their recommendations on what that mothballing looks like, since they're the ones who can give us the best information related to that.
So that's not something we've done before, so that's a part of what we're.
It's just the idea of having that redundancy is much better position than we are right now anyways.
Are we gonna have like an after-action report, like 1 year from now, 6 months from now, or whatever, as the new outfit does their thing? Just to, at least be aware that, hey, this isn't like we thought.
Yeah, I think
I don't know that we need it, maybe.
we should have a contract performance report in a year.
And I think we have some reporting requirements that are in there as well, so
Sorry.
that's.
And we'll share.
Chainsaws were the dumbest thing I ever had. You dull your chainsaw when you're working in the woods and you're working a company saw, it doesn't make any difference. You dull your chainsaw, it makes a difference.
Well, we had conversations about that with our consultant too. And it was their recommendation, because that originally was our thought, but it was their recommendation that we keep it. So we had control over that and then set a maintenance schedule with them and manage it.
Right. So next up, the work site reconfiguration. I know we had a briefing about this a couple months ago. Again, some of the highlights of that, was upgrading our traffic flow to reduce customer queuing, as well as conflicts, because right now we have both commercial and residential vehicles basically lining up around each other. And plus getting infrastructure off of the old closed landfill because it's settling and it's creating a lot of issues with our buildings and structures and streets and roads and all that.
Settling.
Yeah, it's an issue. Meeting our current and future regulatory requirements, and really the biggest piece is increasing our ability to serve additional customers into the future. I mean, right now, like I mentioned, in the summertime, we are strapped. We have commercial and residential coming in, and we're at capacity. So we need to look at expanding to create more capacity so we can, for the next 20 years, and that's just expected to continue to grow. I mean, I'd love it if we could hold this steady with more recycling and more organics, but it's gonna grow. I mean, waste stream will still grow because population is gonna continue to grow. Must be grow significantly. And we're currently on this, we are working with HDR on a pre-design study. So basically they're creating the basis for design parameters that would be used when we go out to actually have the actual design of plans and specifications done, that we basically, here's the criteria that you need to design to and what we're looking at. And that will be coming back to, as we get to, going out to do that, we'll be coming back to the board at that time as well.
Are you still having settling problems out there?
Oh, absolutely. That's why we want to get off.
That's our thing, that's our problem.
Yep, that's our landfill, that's our problem, yeah. So it'll continue to do that.
And I think this plan, the access road moves away to find solid ground, that's one of the best.
That's the key, is moving that, the new scales, the admin building and all that down onto basically unlandfilled space, which is that area in that picture kind of in the center, but to the south, more towards I-5. That's not overall landfill.
Because the access road, we rebuilt it, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Which one?
The access road.
Oh, yeah.
And this morning, just noticed you can start feeling. It's just,
Hit the wave.
yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
It's just
I've been
settling
building
those
in
pockets.
a landfill, that's
If you
what
went
it
out there,
is.
if you go to the bypass for the inbound scales, there's one that, there's a road that goes by it. In the wintertime, it's the bird bath.
Yeah.
Because water just does, it's really hard. You keep filling it, and it's just, and if you look at the scales in the inbound, you see they keep the new layers of asphalt, or it's, they just put it over and over as it's continuing to sink. So.
Kind of like the Black Lake Bridge business over there.
Yeah,
As we add more, it
exactly,
gets better.
that's in principle.
And then the other substantive project that you'll be seeing over the next year is I know we had a work session, or a briefing with this earlier in the year, is the potential South County transfer station investigation. Back in 2019, HDR did a facility condition assessment report that basically said that Rainier and Rochester drop boxes needed some substantive improvements to bring them up to stuff to meet capacity, with adding scales, suggested adding scales, and then making some other improvements so that we could put larger shipping containers and not avoid having to haul that waste to work to be gotten rid of. However, the dollars for that were substantial, and at that time it was decided, well, that's a lot of money to invest in something that still has, you're not adding additional services because of your space restrictions. Would it make sense to look at a potential regular transfer station down there? So HDR did an initial assessment, kind of did a cursory look at what are some properties out there that might be available, and then put an estimated cost to do that. And it wasn't, it was more, but not hugely more than the cost to upgrade those other two Dropbox sites.
Is that the $5 a ton thing that I thought I saw something just in the last day or so about that report from those folks and making a recommendation.
To the staffing report to going into a 7 days operation, that's what he's talking about.
Is that it?
Yeah, that would have been for keeping those two open.
No, we haven't brought that forward yet. We haven't
Where did
received.
I see it?
In the report, I forward to the board related to moving into a 7-day operations.
And it's gonna be $5 more a ton or something.
Yep.
Do that.
Kind of what they're,
Page 3. I can pick some of it out, but
kind of the gist of what that analysis that was performed, this is for keeping Rainier and Rochester open 7 days versus just the 3. You're not gonna get you're gonna have a substantive increase in cost, but you're not gonna get that much more in
An input.
waste.
Yeah.
So it becomes very expensive for which, and you
And
don't.
that's what you'd recall, is because the
The
flow.
volume would be spread out over
Yeah,
different
the
days.
flow is not gonna be increasing so much in order to make it profitable for the,
Put a lot of additional expense.
so that's
really,
what you see the increase, because there's not enough.
And you didn't add,
That's what you
Is
may
that,
recall.
is that another briefing coming up? Are we gonna be talking about that later? That's already
Certainly, we
out there.
can, you can organize a briefing on that.
Oh, no,
What's-
I just wondered if that's
What's
what it
going to
was.
be coming up is the South County Transfer Station siting and that process and the criteria.
and that might be a good time to look at
Right.
that. And they're currently doing a siting study, as we talked about, and we've got to go forward with that. And we'll have that here in the next couple of months. And then once that comes forth, we can bring that, and that could join that conversation.
That work?
Yeah, it was good information. I didn't know where it fit.
So, yeah, we're engaged in it right now, and once we have something, then we'll bring that forth to the board. So also upcoming as far as in planning and administration and administrative, so we will be going forth probably at the beginning of next year. And it's in our CIP, the performance of our solid waste rate study. We definitely wanted to see what impact the new contract would have on that, to see as far as our costs before we did that analysis though, because it might change, it looks different than what it was just a couple months ago. So we'll move forward with that, see where that goes. Mentioned the litter program before, where right now we have a single FTE that runs our litter program. We are interested in adding a secondary FTE to help be able to assist with that. And one of the things we were looking to do is over the next year is to develop a adopt a road, adopt a park type program, which this county doesn't have, and you see them all over the place. It would require a little bit more labor, but it's a great opportunity to leverage volunteers and civic groups and neighborhood associations and that sort of thing. We just provide the supplies with the litter pickup sticks and the bags, and they do the work, and then we just go pick up the bags when they're done. So we're looking to develop something along that line, but again, we need a little more than just the one FTE because he's pretty busy just driving around picking up garbage right now. So hopefully look to expand that over the next year. I mentioned the previous LaSWIFA funding for Hazo House. We put in our proposal for this upcoming 2023-2025 biennium back on May 9th, and just on Friday I got the email from Ecology that we were approved for $564,000 of that of their dollars to help direct towards those expenses for labor and the hauling of that waste. So that funds a pretty substantial portion of that expense.
Awesome.
So that's spread over the biennium.
It's for biennium, correct?
And 100,000 of that, are you gonna talk about 100,000 for the Hazo House updated the plan?
Yeah, so, and it's public health was, in the SWIFT, public health is applied for, and you'll hear it from them probably, $100,000 from in the SWIFT funds, which they had to come through us to do that. But they're gonna update their household hazardous waste management plan. The solid waste management plan was just recently done, if you recall, but HHW one has been since 2014, I believe. So it's old and needs to be done. So I believe Ecology is approved public health, and they're the applicants for that, and they'll be running through them. There will be actively engaged participants because obviously we're a key player since we run Hazo House. And then just a quick mention on the last item there. We're working with SWAC on their membership piece. So just I'm not going to get into it too much, but the current ordinance as far as membership, it limits us as 15 members. We're at 15 members. But with one of the key criteria is that there's supposed to be in the current ordinance is that there's a public member representing each of your guys' districts. We're going to have 5 districts soon. So there's 2 more that we would need to have, but we can't technically because we're limited to 15. So we're looking, and we've had a conversation back, I believe it was in January with the SWAC that would like to change the way that's made up. There's more conversation we had. One of the thoughts that they were talking about was maybe changing the public ones that representing specific districts to just being at large.
How about just say three different, that three members of the public that represent three different districts of, that way
at large.
you're spreading them around the county, but you're not having to have five. And two wouldn't have one, but you wouldn't have them all stacked in Yelm or whatever.
Correct. Yes, I think that's kind of the direction I believe they're gonna go, but we're gonna have more conversations and draft something up, but
We're just
it'll go
developing a
through
proposal
SWAC
for the
and then-
board.
And this is one of the many there's coming before you, because there's other boards, commissions, the specifically addresses 5 commissioners, so we're working, on bringing proposals for your consideration.
So this will come back to you all, so you'll have this ordinance that have to be changed, so once, we wanna run it, just get the SWACs run through it first. But I just wanted to make you aware of that that's coming. And lastly, another key piece is in the current SWIFT funding, we also, besides the money for House House, I just spoke about previously, we received $150,000 from Ecology to perform a waste characterization study. So
A what? A waste what?
a waste characterization study. So what that is multiple times over a year during different seasons, they come out for a week and pick random grab samples from residential trucks and commercial, and then, they get a sample, they sort them by what they are, paper, writing paper, this is cardboard, this is whatever, like 50 different categories, weigh them out. Really, and you end up with, okay, here's what we're throwing away, and here's what's in what we're throwing away. Here's what's recyclable plastics, here's what's food waste, here's what's paper, et cetera, glass. And really, the reason this is valuable to us is it tells you, what is still being thrown away. Really, it informs us on decisions, such as for different programs. So if you see that, oh my God, we have 25% of our waste being thrown away is on just making something out of this cardboard, you would then definitely put more education and outreach effort out there. That's easy stuff to get. There's a great market for it. It's low-hanging fruit. You would put your efforts into trying to improve to get those materials. So again, we'll find out. When I see like food waste is currently about 10% of what we're continuing to see. You don't want to do is spend your dollars chasing something that doesn't have much impact in your waste stream. So you're trying to go for where's the best bang for your buck when you're out there creating programs and that sort of thing. So that additionally, besides just the garbage piece, they've also been looking at the organic stream and the recycling stream to see what the contamination levels are and what are the contaminants. So in your recycling stream, plastic bags. I mean, yeah, it's a big one. So that way, again, we can identify where do we need to do better education to the public on don't put these things in your recycling bin, for example. So this will be wrapping up at the end of June. Again, this is being funded by a ecology grant. So it'll be something again that helps to guide some of our decisions on where we're spending our dollars, and particularly on education and outreach. And our own staff is performing similar waste audits on the recycling at multifamily, so apartment complexes. Again, we're looking at see what's the contamination levels and what types of materials are we seeing out there. Again, it helps us to make some decisions on where, and work with our haulers as far as getting our education out there. And with that, any questions? That wraps up my piece.
So why, if ecology is paying them to do that, like what's the point of having our staff do the same thing?
Well, they're not looking specifically because the ecology piece is looking at Pacific Sanitation. It's looking at curbside picked up. We were looking just at being very specific on just multifamily.
Why is that? Is there a theory that they do something different than everybody else?
They do.
Okay.
Contamination is, I hate to say it, at residential typical residential curbside, it's when they pick it up and they tip it and they see stuff, they can leave a note for that owner, who put it there.
No, what?
There's more accountability. They can leave a note for the owner, so the haulers, when they go and they see the recycle being tipped and it's contaminated, that owner, that customer can be notified of that. In the multifamily, there's not that accountability.
It's very anonymous.
Well, isn't it a mechanized dump system?
Yes.
Well, how do they know what's in it then?
Well, on like the residential, like the households, when they tip it up like that, they have cameras in there.
They see it.
They can see what falls in.
Oh, so they know if the body's being dumped in or not?
That's how they can, that's how they're able
Sometimes, yeah,
to track.
sometimes.
That's,
And
Usually
multifamilies-
multi-family.
multifamilies are notoriously hard, and for a number of reasons. Again, there's that anonymity of, not being able to see. Additionally, I mean, you can go and educate, I'll say an apartment complex, the people, and then, in 6 months, 20%, 25% of those people are gone, and you have new people, so it's hard to, because the turnover is so high, it's
I
hard.
didn't know, I have a single family residence and I had no idea that I was accountable and that I'd get a nasty note,
You
so.
can- And the arguably is the same thing, if they see that, and then when they see it, and they see like a hose or, something else that's not supposed to be in there, they might give you a warning and.
Okay, what? Okay, say that again on the
First,
hose.
recycle. Recycle paper, recycle materials. If
Yes.
they, as an example, if they see a hose that doesn't, you cannot recycle that, needs to go into your garbage.
Oh.
If they see it, they leave you a reminder note.
It's funny that you say that because I would think the exact opposite, like, because I've heard about how, like, I've read about how, like, in Japan, like, people are, like, really aggressive about recycling. Like, if, like, you look bad to your neighbors if you're not perfectly recycling and it's like peer pressure, kind of. And I would think in a like, for me personally, I would be more diligent in a multifamily because I wouldn't want to look bad to my neighbors versus thinking that the people that dump them with an automated thing are gonna care or look or ever communicate with me. I would never think that there'd be more accountability from the curbside collectors than there would from my own neighbors.
Yeah,
I lived in an apartment for a year and it was astonishing. And it was very clear, cardboard, and how,
People just wouldn't do
Oh.
it.
Yeah, and
the garbage bin is full, they go, well, there's not enough room in here.
and they just
I guess when you're paying for, like, don't you pay extra or whatever to have certain services when you're paying for your own recycling? So maybe that's kind
Well,
of
generally
helps.
speaking, recycling for, from normal curbside for a single family home, when you have garbage service, it's part of the package.
Part. I
So
pay for
basically,
yard
not
waste.
paying it, I mean, it's, the price is in there, but then it's not like, typically, it's not an optional thing, it's a piece of the.
organics is.
Organics and yard waste is obvious.
Separate, could be separate, yeah, depending where you're at.
Interesting. And then I had one other question before you move on. Swag. Characterization. No, I forgot it, so never mind.
Did you have a question?
No,
Town manager?
I thought the county manager did.
can you provide an update on the styrofoam, please?
Yeah. But the update is really, there is no update at this point in time, we have not been able to.
So bring back the board up to speed.
Yeah, tell us the problem.
Because we stopped receiving styrofoam.
So what happened was, at the beginning of February, DART, who is located in Tumwater, they were a styrofoam producer, but they're also the ones that picked up all the styrofoam and collected it.
Producer? They're a styrofoam producer?
Well, they collected it and then they would extrude it and create products out of it.
Oh, okay.
And they're in Tumwater, and they're the ones who collected the styrofoam that we accepted at the work. Beginning of February, they contacted me and said, well, because a couple of years ago, there was a state law that was passed that there's certain products would have to be phased out. Well, that was, as we found out, that was a lot of the products that they were making at their Tumwater facility. So they basically made the decision that they were gonna shut down their operations in March. So he said, we'll come and get it for you for another month to the end of February, but then we're done. So we had to suspend the program at the end of February because we had nobody to pick it up. And we've spoken to a couple other companies, one's up in Kent. They're all far away, and styrofoam is very uneconomical to ship anywhere because it's just, it's so light. I mean,
Yeah,
unless you can
volume,
densify
but
it
light.
first, it's ridiculous. I mean, you can have a 53-foot tractor trailer array with 1 ton. All the way to the ceiling. So it needs to be, transportation is the killer. So right now, we don't have anybody that's willing to come get it. So until we can find somebody that might be able to do that, I won't say it's over, but it's suspended until we can.
So what are you doing with styrofoam now?
we tell people to throw it away.
Just
Or-
in the waste stream,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately, and that's some of the feedback that I receive.
It's
So
frustrating.
they wouldn't have any options, they have to go into the waste stream.
The place in Kent closed as well.
That must have been recent then.
Mhm.
And it's a hard economic model, because again, shipping just kills you in that one because there's no weight.
And you can't compress it, I suppose.
You can melt it.
Yeah, you can, if there's a way, if you had to, you'd have to purchase a very expensive densifier, like that's what they call it. That basically heats it to just the point of melt and then creates really dense cubes. It's expensive, a piece of equipment, and then it's a full-time operation because it's such a bulky item as far as space, storage. We actually directed, somebody that said, well, maybe we can get it if you densified it first to Republic, if they wanted to run it, if they want to purchase and run a densifier and make it profitable. I haven't heard anything coming out of that at this point, so.
Still have to transport it. So-
You know, it makes
It's better as
really,
a brick, though.
it's really good napalm. Styrofoam is. No, I'm not joking, it really is. So maybe some of these places that do controlled burns or something would like it. You just put a little gas in it and it's perfect napalm.
I think that would be against air quality. Right?
Oh, I don't know, they go around burning, they have controlled burns and stuff.
But perhaps. we
Forest
should look
fire
at it.
people go along dripping that stuff, trying to make a controlled burn, and you guys aren't up with reality.
Perhaps we're not up to that.
Maybe get a hold of the
technology.
military, they put it all over there in the Middle East somewhere. No, I really do, I mean, it'd make perfect napalm. I don't know what the chemical makeup of napalm is, but I've been around napalm and I can't tell the difference.
Okay, with that, it is 2:52. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.